With all the new mythics coming out in Fruma, in addition to all the new item ascensions, it's really easy to overlook some of the older mythics that are buffed within this update. One of the older mythics that got buffs that actually caught my interest was Toxoplasmosis. This mythic in particular has an extremely wacky history, as it's known as one of the worst mythics you can ever get. When you look at the stats of this weapon, you'll instantly realize why this is considered one of the worst mythics in Wynncraft. As you can see, its base damage is astonishingly low. For reference, the weapon you get when you start out as a shaman, the Oakwood Relic, has literally more base damage than this Toxoplasmosis. Of course, Toxoplasmosis has its own gimmicks. Notably, its extremely high poison identification. However, even with this identification, Toxoplasmosis was not able to keep up with other mythics. However, with the Fruma expansion, Wynncraft added a new major identification to Toxoplasmosis. Outbreak. This new major identification basically allows you to store your poison identification onto your totem and detonate it with uproot. This basically allows Toxoplasmosis to gain a significant damage increase. So, how do we play Toxoplasmosis in the Fruma expansion? Let's start with the ability tree. We're going to be using a Ritualist tree without Awakened. This is because we need the other nodes from the Summoner tree to gain maximum totems, and Toxoplasmosis simply just doesn't benefit from Awakened. With triple totems and Mythic Summoner aspect, we can guarantee maximum poison generation for us to be able to detonate. We will also be using Tribal Chant to buff our team. We will also be using Artist Immersion for our setup, as spamming 4 totems in a row without Mask of the Fanatic is simply too expensive. Mask of the Fanatic also serves as an excellent defense option when you need that extra damage resistance, and Mask of the Heretic is excellent for mobility, such as in the Nameless Anomaly watch phase. Mask of the Heretic is typically the mask you want to stay on, as this is the mask that allows your totem to follow you around, which means you won't have to reset your poison every time you want to reposition your totems. Essentially, how you play Toxoplasmosis is you place 4 totems, wait for the poison, get in range, and detonate. So, why would you play Toxoplasmosis over any other mythic? Well, there really just isn't any other reason. Normal Summoner and normal Acolyte already outperforms Toxoplasmosis in my opinion. Even then, if you want to play Ritualist, Puppet Bomber is typically a better choice. However, there are some unique benefits from playing Toxoplasmosis. Notably, Toxoplasmosis uses poison damage. Poison is an environmental type of damage, which means it ignores defenses of enemies. As you can see, this 2 million damage detonation on the training dummy is still 2 million damage on a Nameless Anomaly. This means that even though, on paper, the poison damage is low, comparatively to other weapons, the gap is lower than it seems. Additionally, Toxoplasmosis allows you to do something that, from my knowledge, no other weapon allows you to do. You can actually build up damage during quote-unquote downtime. The most notable downtime is the TNA watch phase. As you can see here, I was able to build up 500k stacks of poison on each of my totems to do an instant 2 million HP detonation on the Nameless Anomaly as soon as he exited watch phase. Another benefit of Toxoplasmosis is that typical damage bonuses doesn't really affect it. That means other than the strength requirement needed to use Toxoplasmosis, there's no reason to invest your skill points in any other element. This means that you can run earth, fire, and air without worrying about any of the damage loss. This means that your Toxoplasmosis build could be insanely tanky if done right. However, the downsides are very apparent. Even though Toxoplasmosis can do this much damage, I don't think it competes with any of the other fire mythics, such as Inferno, Monster, and even absolution. Additionally, I think the 6-block range of the Toxic Cloud is simply too low. I often finding myself having to overshoot or undershoot to get the totems to line up because I really can't tell if the totems are in range or not to do the Toxic Cloud detonation. And for bosses like the Eye, I have to go inside the boss to get the totem in range for me to do the detonation, which is not a good player experience. In addition to this, there really isn't much raid buffs that buff poison damage. Most of the time in raids, you're going to end up selecting a defensive related buff instead of an offensive one. This also puts you at a disadvantage versus other builds who can freely use basically all the raid buffs. Not to mention, you're basically locked out of doing loot run. This is because most of the boons offered never give you poison damage. Basically, there are still significant downsides to playing this playstyle in comparison to a regular playstyle. In conclusion, I think Toxoplasmosis is in a pretty good place right now. It just needs minor quality of life adjustments, such as maybe a minus uproot costs identification to reflect this new major ID, and just make the Toxic Cloud be the range of the entire totem, because I genuinely don't see a reason why it should not be like that. That would also fix another issue where there's no actual indicator of the Toxic Cloud range or if the Toxic Cloud hits, which is very annoying for me because I have to always guess if I'm actually doing damage or I'm just slightly out of range and I'm doing absolutely nothing. I hope this video was enjoyable and informative. I just wanted to bring attention to one of the mythics I think that deserves some of the love that other mythics are getting right now. And that is about it. So, goodbye.